Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. In this video I wanted to show you guys how to make fishing lures, wobblers to be precise. I personally enjoy both fishing and carpenting, and have to say making these is a really fun task to do. Obviously there are really good ones you can just buy from store, but I have noticed that when you catch something with something you have made yourself, those fish just do feel slightly bigger than the other ones. We'll go through the main steps how to make these, and also go through some things what you really have to take into consideration if you want to make these. The main steps are quite simple, but in some cases you have to think about a few things to make these guys swim properly. But yeah, let's have a closer look how to make these. The first thing to do is to decide which wood are you going to use. Aspen is a really good choice. It's light and it's also easy to work with. I have also used spruce, but with that you need to remember that with pine trees you have those stripes within the wood, so you might need to add quite a thick layer of paint if you want to cover those stripes completely. My personal choice has been birch. It's slightly heavier wood than those previous two, but I find it slightly sturdier. I like to think that with my lures I can actually catch some fish. So having a really tough wood is a good thing to have when you are doing fishing. And I haven't really noticed any difference with the weight. The birch does weigh slightly more, but when you have such a small lure, I haven't really noticed that it makes really any difference. So for those reasons my choice has been birch. Now that we have decided which wood to use, we can just cut it into the size we want. And obviously remember to use dry wood. Next, we need to saw a crack in the middle, so we can put the metal line in there and have all the hooks and so on attached to that one. But first, we need to measure the crack to be in the middle. Now that we have the crack in the wood, we are almost ready to start carving. But first, I want to draw some outlines over here, because that helps tremendously to actually make the shape you want. So that's the next step we're gonna do. Okay, here we have the final piece, and the measurements are, this is 60 millimeters long, 19 millimeters high, and 18 millimeters wide. And the crack we just made, in the rear it's 8 millimeters deep, and in front 7 millimeters deep. Now we're gonna add a few points to help us to draw the outlines of the lure. So first we're gonna have the thickest point of the lure 15 millimeters from the front. And then we're gonna make the longest point 8 millimeters from the bottom. So the attachment point is going to be slightly under the longest point. Then we need to make a few marks on the rear, just to make sure we are not gonna cut too much off, either on the top or on the bottom side of the lure. So a few marks over here. This is pretty much the goal we are aiming for. Great, now we are ready to start drawing. Okay, so here are the outlines of our lure, and now we are ready to start carving this. For the carving you need to have a proper knife. Finnish puukko is a really good choice, and also some sandpaper to really finish the job. But now we are ready to go. Okay, now we have carved the top part and also the bottom part, and we are slowly starting to see the shape we drew on the paper. Sorry, not on the paper, but to the actual block itself. And now we can continue working on the sides and make it more lure-like. Right, so now we have also done the sides roughly, and it's still quite square-like. But now the next step is to make it more round, and then hopefully we will have the final design and final shape. when you're carving the wood, I strongly recommend that whenever you carve something out of one side, you also immediately do the other side as well, because with the lures it's really important to have the lure well balanced. So when you do one side, always do the opposite side next, because that way it will be a lot easier to maintain the balance. Okay, I'm starting to be quite happy with the results. So this is what it should look like after the carving. And now we shall take some sandpaper and really finish the job. At first I'm gonna use slightly rougher sandpaper. I'm not sure if these have some international standard or measurement, but the roughness of this paper is 100. So we will start with this. Now we will switch to a little bit smoother sandpaper, and this one is 240, so already a lot smoother than the 100 we just used. Luckily I have my hat on. But yeah, we are pretty much finished here. So this is how the lure looks like after carving and sanding. It's quite smooth, and now we can finally see the actual shape. Yeah, let's move on to the next phase. Now that we have the shape we want, and we have already done the crack into the wood, we are ready to put the metal line in there. So in the final part we'll be able to put all the hooks in there, and also make the attachment point for the line. And the metal saw I used was 1 millimeter thick, and since I have a metal line whose thickness is also 1 millimeter, as you can see it fits really well into the crack, so it will also stay there quite well. And obviously we're gonna use glue and so on. So the next step is to bend this metal line into right shape and put it inside the crack. For this part you're gonna need some pliers. I have my Leatherman shoes right here, and we're gonna start by making the attachment point for the line. So start with approximately 30 millimeters from one end, and then press the pliers and bend the line like this. And then at the end also press these two parts together to make it quite nice noose noose at the end. In this next part we're gonna need a ruler. I just want to make sure that the next turn we're gonna make is going to be approximately 20 millimeters or slightly more. Yeah, that looks good. So now, once again, press the pliers and bend the line to one direction. Then press again to a different spot, approximately around here. Don't make it too long so it won't come too much out of the lure itself. So this is pretty okay, maybe 8 millimeters I would say. Then once again bend the wire and again press the parts together to make a nice loop over there. I think the loop is slightly better word than noose. And then continue with the bending and turn the later part to that direction. So now we have already 2 loops ready. Now we need to put the metal line already slightly inside the lure to have the metal line in right length. So this is looking pretty good. I would say if I bend it from here, it should be okay. Okay, now we have the right spot and we can make the bend like this. Now just bend it till the end. Oh, nice. It looks really nice. Then once again press these together to have a nice loop over there. And I believe we had the measurement quite right. The metal line I had was approximately, I would say, 15 centimeters. I didn't measure it accurately. I just had the old assumption what was the length I needed to have, and as you can see, I was like 2 millimeters away from that. But yeah, now we have the final results. So we have this part where the line will be attached, and then we have these two loops over here where the hooks will be placed. And now we can put this on its right place. Okay, let's see how it goes there. So let's start from the front part. It's going quite well over there. Also the back. I often tend to use one of these flat-headed screwdrivers as my help in this task. Okay, the length seems to be pretty okay, and now let's try to put the middle loop in there as well. Looking good. Slightly this way. Yeah, that's good. Then press this all the way to the bottom. Nice. Now we have it on its place, so now we are ready to seal the crack. Here I have some just ordinary glue suitable for wood, and then I have some small pieces of wood which I'm going to use in this case. So let's just have some glue over there. Just add it in here. Let's just press it to its place. Yep, it looks good. Now the second one is going to be added here. Yep. Okay, that looks quite okay. Let's just clean the extra away. Yep. Just like that. Now. And also the other part, other side. And now as the final part, we're gonna add some glue into the loop so the water will hopefully not go inside the lure. Yeah, now it's pretty much okay. So now we can just, there's a small crack. Slightly more glue in here. Yeah. Okay, now it's ready. So now we will just let it dry and we'll be able to continue from there. Now it's all dried up and we can remove the extra parts. Now we are in the painting part, and for the painting I'm gonna use acrylic colors. And this time I want to make my lure green, and I have 5 different types of or 5 different colors I'm using here. And remember that when you have yellow, blue and red, and also white and black, you can create pretty much whichever color you want. So there's really no point on buying each color separately, because you can just mix things up and create your own colors, the colors you want. So for the green, we obviously are going to use yellow and blue, and I'm also going to mix it with a small amount of white to make sure the color is not going to be too dark. So, and obviously you're gonna need a brush. The one I'm using here is about 10 millimeters wide. I also have a thinner brush for the details. We're gonna go through a little bit later on. And you also need a little bit water. Make sure the brush stays okay, because I'm gonna paint the lure twice, so everything will be covered up really well. So here we are making the mixture. We're gonna start with yellow. That should be okay. Then we're gonna add a small amount of blue. Yep, that's okay. And now also a little bit white to make it a little bit lighter. There. Now let's just mix it up. Awesome. Now we have the color we want, so we can start painting. And before we do that, I'm gonna put a few metal lines, attach them into the lure, so I can control the lure, change different angles and so on a lot easier when the paint is wet. Great, now it's ready, and I'm going to paint this second time with the green color, so we're gonna let it dry for, I don't know, 15 minutes, and then we're gonna add the second layer. I have now painted this 2 times, and this is already somewhat dry. I usually have the main idea to have the top part slightly darker and the bottom part a little bit lighter. And we're gonna do this by adding some yellow color to the bottom. And for this task, I have a smaller brush. This is a very good brush for small details, and I'm gonna use this to add some yellow paint to the bottom. There we have the yellow stripe. I'm gonna let it dry up and add the second layer, because just one layer you can kind of see through the green paint over there, so with a second layer it's going to be a lot better. We have now done the yellow stripe 2 times, and now we can move on to the top part, which we're gonna have some black paint over there. Right, we have now done the top part, so we can move on to the sides. And for this, I'm gonna use the smaller brush. Now comes the tricky part, where we need to make eyes for our lure. And for this task, we're not gonna use brushes, but we have this simple stick. We have quite sharp points on both ends, one for the white and one for the black. And the key thing for this is to have a little bit white paint and just make the eye. Yep, that's good. And now let's have the other end. And just don't press too much, just put the black paint in the middle. That's a good start. Just add a little bit more. I would say the key part is to slowly add the black paint over the white paint. That way you will have the best result. Right, now we have one eye ready and just need to finish the second one. Now that we have the paint all dried up, here comes the easiest part, so we can just cover this lure in varnish. You can just put it inside there and cover it up. Our lure now is all dried up. It is already looking quite shiny. And the next phase is that we need to saw a crack on this side, and we need to attach a swimming plate over there. And for creating the swimming plate, we're gonna use 2mm thick polycarbonate plate. This is bright, you can see through the plate after we remove the covering part. And for creating these swimming plates, we're gonna use a drill bit that is empty inside, and that will create a swimming plate that's diameter is approximately 90mm. And then we're gonna use a file to make one side flat, and we'll be able to attach that swimming plate over there. And this is a highly critical phase, so if you happen to get the plate slightly to wrong angle, that means that the lure will swim very strongly on either side, on one side, and that's not the result we want. So we need to be highly accurate when we make the crack into the lure. Now we're gonna make one side flat, so we'll be able to attach that into the lure. And we have a file over here. Okay, now it's already slightly flat, and now we can also remove these shelters. And now we can take a smaller file and take the roughness out from the sides. There. Here we have the swimming plate ready. Now we need to make the crack into the lure. Right, for this part I have created this small tool to help me with this phase. I have these small lines to guide me to make the sawing into 90-degree angle, and I have also attached some rubber over here help me to not make any damage on the surface over here. But now we should be ready to start sawing the place for the swimming plate. I'm gonna start with an iron saw, and I just need to assume the right position. This should be fine. Need to make sure every now and then that the line is straight. The 1mm thick metal saw is obviously too thin for the 2mm thick swimming plate. So for that reason we're gonna continue with a metal file. And for this task I'm gonna use the Victorinox work champ, since the file is pretty much perfect size for this part. Right, so now all we need to do is to glue the swimming plate onto its right place, and for this task we're gonna use some super glue. Now the one last thing to add are obviously the hooks, and adding these you need to have these kind of small rings to help you. So these are going to be attached between the hooks and the loops we did previously to the loop. And before you attach these, you might want to clean these loops up, because there's still some varnish filling these, so it won't be that easy to get these in the right places. And the hooks I'm using are size 6, so these are the ones we're going to use. And for the attachment part, we're gonna use Leatherman Juice. These pliers are pretty much the perfect size for this task. So attach the ring into the hook, and then take the whole thing and try to put it on its place into the loop. Right, now we have the first one and need to do the second one as well. Right, our lure is now ready, and the final thing to do is to test it out and see if there's still some adjustment we need to make. Okay, so here we have the final result, and we did the testing, and at least I am pretty satisfied with the result, and I sure hope that the fish will the same way, and we have here a really effective lure years to come. And it did swim slightly on one side, on its right side, if I remember correctly. And if it does that, you can just make the adjustment by turning the front loop to one of its sides. And in this case, when the lure did swim slightly on right side, turn the front loop slightly also to the right side. That will make the lure more balanced, and hopefully it will swim quite straight after that. So that's the adjustment you can do in this final part. And also, when you make this, obviously using different colors is a good idea, and different designs. Just use your imagination, and I'm sure that there are plenty of different things which will work really well. And also the shape, you can alter that whichever you want, and just try different things, how the lure will behave, how it will swim, and so on. I just have noticed that this type of design just happens to swim rather well, and also the coloring has been quite effective over the years. So I have certain colors I want to use with my lures, and that's just my thing, but I'm sure you have your own preference to have. But yeah, I think that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you guys a wonderful day. Bye.